Tensions in Parliament, a walkout by government MPs, and Parliament adjourned till the 21st.
අපි සභාවේ වැඩ කටයුතු මාර්තු 21 වෙනි දින දවල් 1 වෙනකන් කල් දමනවා.
Minister Aluth Gamage alleges that the subject minister is not aware of the Sri Lankan Airlines agreement.
තමුන්නාසව සත්ත පහකට පයිසකට ගණන් ගත්තේ නැහැ මේ ගණදෙනුව කිරීමේදී.
අවසානයේදී යම් යම් දේවල් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනකොට ඇමතිවරයා හැටියට මා දැනුවත් වුණේ නැහැ.
Detectives of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry record a statement from Arjuna Mahendran. 76 detained Indian fishermen released. Well, we have a comeback bulletin lined up just for you this evening. A very good evening. I'm Zol Outskun.
And I'm Rahna Farooq. Let's start off with a look at your top story for tonight. Parliament was adjourned today following a tense situation that erupted during today's parliamentary session.
අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය. ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය.
We are from the SLFP. Although the SLFP agreed to act together with the government, the other parties in our group did not grant their consent to this. Even though these parties contested under our ticket, they are independent. They have their own ideologies and policies. So it is up to you, Mr. Speaker, and this chamber to allow them to express their views. Kindly think about it and give them the opportunity to speak on various issues that arise in the country. Allocate at least a limited time period for them.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව තුල
I have taken steps to allocate 55% of the time set aside for the alliance for this group. I monitor this every day.
කටයුතු සවස්වල තියෙනවා දිනපතා මම ඒක බලනවා.
නෑ 155ක් වෙන් වෙලා නැහැ.
Honorable Speaker, 55% of the time has not been allocated. 40% of the time is for the UMP, 30% for the alliance and 30% for the opposition.
භාගයක් 115යි.
භාගයට වැඩිය මන් දෙනවා.
මන්ත්‍රීවරුන් 51 දෙනෙක්ට
So 30% of the time is allocated for the alliance and we get 15%. 51 members of parliament only receive 15% of the time of this chamber. What we are asking for is the right to represent our people. There's a saying that goes like this: the parrot is on the tree and the monkey is in the nest. It should be done the other way around. This situation needs to change.
මේ තත්ත්වය වෙනස් වෙන්නට ඕන.
මම එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ
I do not hold my position within the UNP. After the election, I have not set foot in Sirikota. I work according to my conscience.
සාක්ෂි අනුව ක්‍රියා කරන කෙනෙක්.
එදා ඒ ජවිපෙන්
Speaker Lokku Bandarra accepted us as a group that contested under the symbol of the bell back then and gave us a separate time period. So Speaker, your path should be dictated by your predecessors, not by so-called chairpersons and secretaries of the alliance.
සීනියා සභාපතිලා ලේකම්ලා නෙවෙයි.
මටත් අවශ්‍ය වෙන මේක.
I want to be as fair as possible. However, I get issues from the other side as well.
තව ගැටලුවක් වෙන අනුත් පැත්තෙන්.
දැන් අද දවසේ වැඩ කටයුතු
නෑ මම අද
නෝ ප්ලීස්.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, සභානායකතුමා ලෙප්පඩ වාඩි වෙන්න. Please let him speak. Let the leader of the house speak.
අද අපේ
There are proposals by our MPs that they are to be tabled today. Don't you have time for that?
Following meetings in the morning with the former speaker, I gave them the opportunity to have 3 speeches.
නෝ ප්ලීස් listen to kind ඔබතුමා මං කියන ගහන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ
මම අද දීලා අවසන් කරනවා.
You have already given a decision on that. How can we carry on with the day's proceedings when you give 2 hours to them in this manner every day?
තුමා හැමදාම උදේ පැය දෙකක් මෙහෙම දෙනකොට දවසේ වැඩ කටයුතු කොහොමද කරන්නේ? මෙහෙම බෑ කරන්න.
Give me 5 minutes point. Give 5 minutes for.
අරු කතානායකතුමනි
Give 5
අරු
minutes.
කතානායකතුමනි
I have agreed for them to expect their individual grievances. Yeah.
අරු කතානායකතුමනි
Wait.
මම කනගාටු වෙනවා.
Honorable Speaker, I am saddened at the fact that you are being cornered in this manner. They should learn to accept your decisions.
For them to 5 minutes is to discuss, you know. So. නෑ දැන් අපි කියලා ඔබතුමා කතා කරලා අපි අවසන් කරමු ඊළඟට යන්න. හරි. මම කතා 3ක් මේවා 3 දෙනේ අවස්ථාව දෙන්නම් කියලා මම පොරොන්දු වුණා. හරි. So after this we are going on to the main area. Yeah.
අබානායක වෙලියට දාන්නද?
Nah, he will speak and I'll finish here. නෑ දෙන්න පුළුවන් ඔබතුමා කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්. Yeah, speak now. මොකද්ද?
උදේ
Please, order please.
හැමදාම උදේ මේ වගේ පැයකමාරක් ඒගොල්ලන්ට කතා කරන්න දෙනවා. හැමදාම උදේ පැයකමාරක් දුන්නම දවසේ වැඩ කටයුතු කරන්නේ කොහොමද?
Hari, you can start here. We are starting now.
Parliamentarians representing the government walked out of the parliament after the leader of the house exited the chambers. Thereafter, the speaker decided to adjourn parliament till the 21st of March.
Order please. අපි සභාවේ වැඩ කටයුතු මාර්තු 21 වෙනි දින දවල් 1 වෙනකන් කල් දමනවා.
Meanwhile, a debate arose in Parliament today with regard to the cancellation of the deal to purchase aircraft for Sri Lankan Airlines. Honourable Minister, you said there was no loss. You made a statement to Cabinet recently and you were subsequently summoned to Templetrees and you were reprimanded by the Prime Minister. Cabinet granted approval to hold talks with YACAB. When this deal was made, the subject minister was unaware. The secretary to the ministry was not aware. 3 letters by the secretary were disregarded. The Attorney General's advice was not sought. You are the General Secretary of the UMP and the subject minister, but they disregarded you when this deal was being formulated. Sri Lankan Airlines comes under your purview. Yet, without anyone being aware and without anyone providing approval, Sri Lankan Airlines signed a deal with YACAB and paid 2 installments. It was then that you were informed. Do you accept this?
You said I was summoned to Templetrees and I was reprimanded. I want to compare this to the manner in which people were brought to Templetrees and assaulted under the previous administration. MPs were afraid to go to Templetrees. We are not afraid because we can go before the Prime Minister and talk about anything with him. There was no pressure on me. How did this situation where the subject ministers do not receive their due place come about? This started during the time of Mahinda Rajapaksa. Mahinda Rajapaksa purchased these aircraft without cabinet approval. Yes, there was an issue. As the subject minister, I was not sufficiently informed of the procedures. That is why I submitted a cabinet paper to safeguard my rights. However, finally, when some aspects were being implemented, I was not aware.
දේවල් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනකොට ඇමතිවරයා හැටියට මා දැනුවත් වුණේ නැහැ.
මගේ ළඟ තියෙනවා චරිත රත්වත්.
I have the email sent by Charita Ratwata. An email was sent through his BlackBerry to his brother, the CEO of Sri Lankan Airlines. The email reads, Honourable Prime Minister has given the instructions to go ahead. So you accept that. While there is a subject minister, it was Charita Ratwata who made this call while there was a cabinet discussion on this. Does Charita Ratwata make the decisions of this government? When this incident took place, what was the recommendation given by President Maithripala Sirisena to your cabinet paper? He recommends that issues relating to the economy should be submitted by the subject minister. The cabinet paper with regard to the port was submitted by Malik Samaravikrama. The coal cabinet paper was submitted by Ranil Wickremesinghe. The Sri Lankan Airlines cabinet paper was submitted by someone else. What is happening here? Why do you remain as a subject minister? What is the use of that ministerial portfolio?
තමුන්නාන්සේලාගේ ඇමතිකම මොකටද?
කලබල වෙන්න එපා.
කලබල වෙන්න දෙන්න තමුන්නාන්සේ තමයි කලබල කරන්නේ.
පොඩ්ඩක් කලබල වෙන්න එපා.
කලබල වීමක් නැහැ. තමුන්නාන්සේ තමයි කලබල කරන්නේ. පොඩ්ඩක් ඉන්නකෝ. ප්‍රශ්නේ මේක මගේ වෙලාව. ඒ නිසා ගරු ඇමතුමා, ඒ නිසා ඔබතුමා මේක ඉතාම
This is a very saddening precedent. We will speak about the theft taking place here separately. I will separately address how an advisor to the finance minister went abroad and negotiated the deal. I am not finding fault with you.
The government continues to retain the ownership of Sri Lankan Airlines. Thereby, the finance ministry has a right to the golden shares of this company. I need to clearly state that this is not cancelled through an email or SMS by Charita Ratwate. Even though I am the subject minister, the Minister of Finance also has a stake, because as the Treasury, they can intervene. So some cabinet papers and decisions are reached in conjunction with them. They purchased these back then on a lease without a proper procedure. There are a further 4 A350-900 Airbuses that are to be purchased. This has not been cancelled as yet. This deal was reached by the previous government for a sum of $200 million per aircraft. That's a total of $800 million. Such an aircraft could be purchased for $120 million today. Isn't this theft or fraud?
If there was a fraud committed during our tenure with regard to purchasing aircraft for Sri Lankan Airlines, look into it. However, simply because you make a statement here, we cannot accept it. It has been 2 years since you were elected and not a single person has been imprisoned for this.
The standing orders 29(2) says the question must not be made the pretext for a debate. This is going on and on. There's a debate taking place.
Question to clarify.
These are not questions. And questions must be brief and supplementary parliamentary questions must relate to the same subject.
Yeah.
And that's why the standing ඒකට තමයි අපිට
කෙටියෙන් ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා කෙටියෙන් ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න ඔබතුමාට කම තරහා යනවා නමුත් ඒක කෙටියෙන් කරන්න
වැඩ බලන අගමැතිතුමාද ප්‍රශ්න ඇහුවේ.
In absence of the Prime Minister, the acting Prime Minister made this statement.
කින් කින් කියනකොට මොකද්ද කියන එක නට තරහ යනවා වගේ තමයි. ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. ගරු ඇමතුමා
Honorable Minister, can you see the way in which people who took commission stand up to speak? They are trying to salvage this. I'm not angry yet. I will be in a short while. Minister, please accept this. Whether you like it or not, all this happened because of the email sent by Charita Ratwata to his brother.
මේ කටයුතු සිද්ධ වුණේ
අපට අපේ ක්‍රමවේ
We have a procedure in the Economic Management Committee following discussions between the subject minister and all the other ministers involved.
කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවක් සමහර විට
let him speak ඔබතුමා disturb කරනවා
සමහර කැබිනට්
Some cabinet papers are recommended by the Prime Minister and submitted by him through the subject minister. The President issued an instruction that cabinet papers should be submitted through the subject minister. That is how I submitted my cabinet paper.
පත්‍රිකාව ඉදිරිපත් කරේ.
Let's take a look at some of the comments made at media briefings convened by the United National Party and the joint opposition.
මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව තුළ ආණ්ඩුවට කළ යුතු බලපෑම් මේ සඳහා අද ජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් අපට
At present, we have been deprived of the opportunity to exert pressure on the government in Parliament on behalf of the people. We have 50 members in Parliament. We will not relinquish this struggle. During the absence of Dinesh Gunawardena, the right of the joint opposition is being questioned. Until the joint opposition is given complete recognition, until we have sufficient recognition in Parliament, we will continue this struggle. That is our decision, and our struggle is not against the Speaker of the House.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ලැබෙන තුරු අපි මේ අරගල ඉදිරියට ගෙන යාමට අපි තීන්දුව කරගෙන ඉන්නේ. මේ කතානායක විමර්ශක අරගලයක් නෙමෙයි අපි.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව තුල අපි බහුතරය අපේ තියෙනවා ඒගොල්ලන් 50 ගාණක්
We have a majority in Parliament. They have just over 50 members. They inconvenience the Speaker of the House by standing up from time to time, not allowing proceedings to continue. MP Dallas Alha Perma was not in Parliament during the whole of that day. There were only 5 or 6 members. He said that the issues of the alliance have to be raised in Parliament. Yesterday they said that they are not being summoned for the alliance meetings. There is no point in lamenting to the Speaker. He is not the leader of the alliance.
සන්දානෙට රැස්වීම වලට මේ කතානායකතුමාට අඬලා වැඩක් නැහැ නේ. එතුමා නෙමෙයිනේ සන්දානේ නායකයා.
Our leader was suspended from Parliament. Thereafter, this parliamentary group finds it impossible to acquire its rights in Parliament. You are aware of where we had to call for a media briefing yesterday. We do not even have an official room. We do not have any location to have a media briefing. Parliament is not giving us the due recognition.
අපට ඒ පිළිගැනීම මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවෙන් ලබා දෙන්නේ නැහැ.
දැන් ඊයේ අපි දැක්කා මේ මාධ්‍ය සාකච්ඡාවේ හිටපු අයත් සියලුම දෙනාම පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී.
The MPs who were present for that media briefing yesterday were all from the opposition. Even we cannot simply obtain a committee room even though we represent the government. If we are to obtain a committee room, we need to be either a minister or a party leader. These persons are making misconceptions in society. They say that we did not grant them a committee room for them to have their media briefing. They claim that they have no political freedom. They are trying to enforce the Goebbels theory. Thankfully, it did not rain at that time yesterday.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ අපිට නෑ කියලා බොරු මතයක් ජනතාව ඉදිරියේදී බලහත්කාරයෙන් අර ගොබෙල්ස් න්‍යායයට අනුව දාන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා. හොඳ වෙලාවට ඊයේ වැස්සේ නෑ. නැත්තම් එහෙම මේ කාපාක්කගේ හෙන ගහනවා.
Karuja Surya, the Speaker of Parliament, made the following statement in Colombo today.
When this invitation was extended to me, I replied that I am not sure if I will be able to make it or not. There are parliamentary sessions these days. Even in Parliament, there are storms.
Minister of Telecommunication and Digital Infrastructure expressed views regarding the Google loan project.
හැබැයි ආණ්ඩුවේ ඉන්නේ මිනිස්සු දන්නේ මොකද්ද මේ බැලුමෙන් වෙන්නේ කියලා. බැලුමෙන් නෙමෙයි Wi-Fi දෙන්නේ. බැලුමෙන් දෙන්න හැදුවේ 4G තාක්ෂණය.
Now the Google loan is a fantastic technology. With that, the idea of Google is that they say that about 2/3 of the world population is not connected.
Right.
It's not connected.
Right.
They are not talking about the penetration. They say they are not connected.
Yeah.
In Sri Lanka, we are 80% connected.
Right.
But not using.
Right.
When 2/3 is reached more than 60% not connected. So that's where they apply this technology to improve this connectivity, give them the connectivity. So if you take the complete coverage or the ability of using these broadband technologies in the country, so at least 80% of the population is covered. Overall, if you talk to the operators, they would say that okay, we have voice 100% covered, but broadband for internet access about 80% covered by at least one or two operators, and few others maybe over 70% covered. So that coverage is there, but the problem is we don't.
The problem is only 25% of the people are using this.
Exactly.
Government gave further notes that internet usage in the country would deter the public from utilizing internet services.
Earlier, we had a tax policy, say for example, for the broadband, telecommunication tax was only 10%, whereas for the voice communication it was about 25%. And there was no VAT in that. Because the VAT is included in that 25%.
Right.
The 25% was formed using the 12% VAT in 2010. Now what has happened is, on top of all that, the broadband tax from 10% has gone up to 25%, like the voice. And on top of that you have another 15% of VAT. So if you want to encourage the people to go and use internet,
this is the wrong way of doing it.
For me, 50% tax is discouraging something.
The explanation of the officials is that the Google Loon project did not incur any expenses to the country and that it was only an experimental project. However, what was the total amount that was spent for the event that was held to launch the Google Loon project in Sri Lanka? How were companies selected to provide services for these events? Was the total cost of the launch of the event approved by the Board of Directors of ICTA? In addition, what were the other costs incurred by the ICTA on this project for clearance of equipment and custom duties? Was an expense incurred when sending back the debris of the crashed Google Loon balloon? Did the ICTA Board of Directors approve the payment for the cost incurred? Who funded the project? The people of this country need to know the truth. And on to a story that made it to the headline this evening. Former Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Arjuna Mahendran, arrived at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate and inquire into the issuance of Treasury bonds.
Detectives assisting the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate and inquire into the issuance of Treasury bonds recorded a statement from the former Governor of the Central Bank. Arjuna Mahendran arrived at the Commission at around 9:20 this morning, accompanied by two attorneys. This afternoon, the statement was recorded for just over 3 hours from the former Governor of the Central Bank. The recording of the statement was adjourned for lunch and commenced in the evening once again.
The People's Trade Union Collective convened a media briefing today.
අපි දැක්කා මේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයා ඊයේ පෙරේද දවස්
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe recently suggested the former president to go for a win-win solution. The question we have is, what is this win-win solution? He has been defeated. What is the win-win solution that you are going to give him? We are suspicious whether this win-win solution is the agreement they had in Singapore. The win-win solution could be, let me deal with bonds while you deal with your matters. That is how you balance both sides. You handle your part in the blind deal and I will show a blind eye to your matters. Is this the solution that they are going to provide? It is not a win-win solution that we want. If someone has done something wrong with regard to the bond, punish them. That should happen. We continuously said this. Do not cut deals. You deal with your matters and I will carry out my matters. We will forgive your mistakes and you forgive ours. Those solutions cannot be given. Do not try to provide solutions. President Maithripala Sirisena presided over a discussion this morning in relation to waste management in Colombo and its suburbs. President Maithripala Sirisena says all relevant institutions should come together to create a proper method to dispose garbage in Colombo and its suburbs. According to the presidential media unit, the president had stated that lapses in the proper disposal of garbage occur as the institutions that are in charge of conducting such activities do not cooperate, adding that each institution should fulfill its responsibility in this regard. During the discussion, attention was paid to the beautification of Colombo as well. The president directed to take rapid actions to renovate the Vihara Mahadevi Park and the surroundings of the Beira Lake. He also directed the Police Environment Unit to conduct raids to detect improper waste disposal. President Maithripala Sirisena also emphasized on the importance of media exposures on the organizations that fail to dispose garbage in a proper manner.
Chief Justice Priyasad Deb says that the number of High Court and Supreme Court judges should be increased to tackle the delay in the legal system. The Chief Justice has added that the number of courtrooms also needs to be increased.
Our correspondent stated that an official ceremony was held to welcome the newly appointed Chief Justice Priyasad Deb at the Colombo Supreme Court premises. The Chief Justice has stated at the event that the quality of affairs of judges should be at the highest standard if the process to provide justice to the public is to be a success. Chief Justice Priyasad Deb has added that the responsibility of all judges is to provide justice to everyone while protecting the human rights of the public. He has also stated that if the judges can set a good precedent, ensuring justice to the people can be accomplished.
Attorney General Jayantha Jayasuriya says that indictments were filed against former Minister Basil Rajapaksa and Thirukumaran Addison at the Gampa High Court.
The case had been filed in connection to the purchase of a plot of land and a house in Malvana worth 250 million rupees. The Attorney General stated that the indictments were filed against former Minister Basil Rajapaksa under the Money Laundering Act for money laundering, aiding and conspiring.
The annual feast of the St. Anthony's Church in the Kachatibu Island will be held tomorrow.
Preparations have been made to hold the feast in a grand scale this time around. A number of Sri Lankan devotees as well as devotees from India participates in the event. The Holy Mass for the feast will be celebrated on Sunday. Around 5,000 devotees from India are to take part in the Holy Mass. They will depart from the Rameshwaram port in Tamil Nadu tomorrow morning. They will be guided by the Indian Navy and the Indian Coast Guard until the international maritime border. Thereafter, they will be guided by the Sri Lankan Navy. A special boat service is in effect for the devotees to arrive at the church. The Sri Lankan Navy has taken steps to provide food, water as well as other facilities required for the devotees.
All preparations are underway here in the island of Kachatibu to celebrate the annual feast of the St. Anthony Shrine of Kachatibu, which will take place over the course of tomorrow and the day after. Now, this is the first annual feast that is being held after the construction of the new shrine, which was done solely by the contribution and funding of the Navy, which can be seen just behind me. Now, the Sri Lankan Navy, which is the organizer of this entire massive undertaking, says that they're expecting over 10,000 devotees, both from India and Sri Lanka, to arrive here in Kachatibu during the course of tomorrow and day after for the feast. And now News First is prepared fully and equipped to bring you the latest from the feast and its preparations from the island of Kachatibu as and when it happens.
Meanwhile, the Indian Coast Guard has informed the 2 Sri Lankan fishermen who set off to sea from the Kankasanture port are under their custody. The relatives have been informed that the Sri Lankan fishermen are currently being held in the Vedaranyam area. The arrested individuals are 42 and 18 years old residents of Point Pedro. The relatives of the Indian fisherman who was shot dead on the 6th of this month have not accepted the remains of the deceased fisherman. The remains are currently lying at the Rameshwaram Government Hospital. A protest was held in the Thangachimadam area today as well, stating that the body will not be accepted until an official notification is made by the Sri Lankan authorities. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan Navy has requested the Indian officials to provide details of the location where shots had been fired on Indian fishermen by the Navy in Sri Lankan waters. Navy Commander Vice Admiral Ravindra Wijegunrathan stated that the request was made from the Indian Coast Guard in this regard. He added that the committee appointed to investigate into the matter is currently recording evidence. Another special investigation is also being carried out by the Ministry of Defence. Now, 76 Indian fishermen who were in Sri Lankan custody have been handed over to the office of the Indian High Commissioner after being produced before courts in Jaffna and Mannar. Now, according to our correspondent, 53 Indian fishermen who were produced before the Jaffna court and 24 fishermen who were produced before the Mannar court were released in this manner. A decision was reached by government recently to release all Indian fishermen in Sri Lankan custody in exchange for all Sri Lankan fishermen in Indian custody. Eight months ago, this unfortunate incident that took place in Kandegedera Ambalangoda claimed the life of a little girl aged 16. Her final steps were taken when she was walking with her boyfriend close to train tracks. Today, we have come into the possession of an incident that took place at that very location. This report is compiled to raise awareness of child security.
The footage that you are witnessing now was recorded in a sequestered area located between the railway stations of Ambalangoda and Kandegoda. The locals in the area charge that this 500-meter stretch of unprotected land is frequently visited by young teenage lovers. The young girls and boys who frequent this location are those who come to the area to attend extra classes.
ඉන්නව කුඩවලින් වහගෙන ජෝඩු ඉන්නවා කිව්වට අහන්නේ නැහැ ළමයෙකුට පාරේ යන්න නැහැ කෙනෙකුට වයසක අපිට පාරේ යන්න නැහැ
ස්කෝල් ළමයිනුත් ඉන්නවා ඒ ජරා විදියට ඉන්නේ මේ මම යන්නේ මම මේ මිනිපිරි ගෙන්න යන්නේ මෙතන ක්ලාස් එකේ එක්කන් යන්න බෑ සමානලාට ලැජ්ජයි.
Sociologists believe that young teens behaving such a manner at secluded places brings a threat to their very own security.
මනුෂ්‍යත්වයේ ශිෂ්ට සම්පන්න බවක් තියෙනවා සතුන්ට වඩා. මේ තරුණ දරුවන් ලිංගිකත්වය කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා පැහැදිලිවම තේරුම්ගෙන නැතිකම. මේ නැවතම මේ රටේ මතුවෙනවා මේ ලිංගික අධ්‍යාපනය විද්‍යානුකූලව ලබා නොදීමේ ප්‍රතිවිපාකත් වර්තමානයේ වෙනකොට දරුවන් කොහෙටද යන්නේ මොනවද කරන්නේ කියන එක පිළිබඳ පැහැදිලි අවබෝධයක් දෙමව්පියන් තුල පවතින්නට වෙනවා. එකම තෘප්තිය ජීවිතයේ ලිංගිකත්වයේ නොවේ ජීවිතවලට වටිනාකමක් තිබෙනවා අරමුණක් තිබෙනවා කියන කාරණය දරුවන්ට අවබෝධ කරවීමේ යම් පැහැදිලි මාර්ගයක් සමාජයේ මතුවන්නට අවශ්‍යයි.
21 civil society organizations and trade unions as well as 3 political parties operating in the north have written a letter citing their displeasure with regards to the actions taken by the Sri Lankan government on the resolution passed by the UN Human Rights Council.
The letter states that a hybrid mechanism that was firmly placed within the control of domestic actors of Sri Lanka would not sufficiently deal with the identified problem. It adds that the judgments of the Sri Lankan courts in the Kumarapuram case and the Raviraj case since the passage of Resolution 30/1 further confirm the entrenched culture of impunity that prevails. It also states that the minimal obligations that were laid out in Resolution 30/1 on accountability have now been officially disowned by Sri Lanka, and the country has also fallen short of many of its other obligations under Resolution 30/1 as well. The letter states that the speech made by Honorable Mangala Samarveera, the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister, at the UNHRC on the 28th of February 2017 on the floor of the current session of the Council is fundamentally misleading, and that it is made of empty rhetoric and is completely delinked from that of the positions of his government. The civil societies, the trade unions and the political parties of the North are alleging that the Tamil-speaking people are being asked to barter truth and justice for an increasingly empty promise of constitutional reform, which may eventually lead to neither a just solution to the political question nor the quest for truth and justice. The letter reads that when a state clearly states that it has no intention to abide by a resolution, for the UNHRC to provide more time to such a state to honour its obligations under the very resolution which it disowns would seriously erode the credibility of the Council.
And in sports news, we start off with the big batch fever. Now, St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia leveled the Royal College first innings score of 255 runs on day 2 of the 198th Battle of the Blues at the SSC grounds in Colombo.
Thomian vice-captain Ravindu Kodituaku and opener Dulit Gunaratne commenced the Thomian first innings today on an overnight score of 33 for no loss. The pair put on an opening stand of 127 runs before Gunaratne was dismissed for 35. Ravindu went on to hammer the Royal bowling attack to all parts of the ground and raced to 98 but fell 2 runs short of a big match century. Wicketkeeper batsman Sitara Hapuhinna was another standout performer for St. Thomas's College today as he made an unbeaten 54. Skipper Romesh Nalla was unbeaten on 32 at close of play today, with St. Thomas's College on 255 for the loss of 4 wickets. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe also joined the big match at the SSC today. Bad light stopped play at 3:45 p.m. and play was officially called off 90 minutes later. Tomorrow is the third and final day of the 138th Battle of the Blues.
Chasing a target of 457 set by Sri Lanka, Bangladesh reached 67 by no loss at the end of day 4 of the first test against Sri Lanka in Galle. Now, Sri Lanka declared on 274 for 6 with opener Upul Tharanga hammering 100 and vice-captain Dinesh Chandimal chipping in with an unbeaten half-century. It was Tharanga's third test century and the second against Bangladesh. The Bangladeshi openers saw off 15 overs as play was stopped early because of bad light with 11 overs.
Good shot again, giving himself some room in the gap at extra.
Gets to his 100. Makes it count.
And that's the wrap for Primetime News. For the News First team, I'm Rahna Farooq.
And I'm Joel Outsgood. Have yourself a great weekend ahead.